Hello everyone, something quite interesting here. These satellite images were shared by deep states and they show a Russian 30-kilometer train barrier consisting of over 2,100 train cars. The barrier stretches from Olenivka to Volnovakha in Donetsk. Now, this is the first I've heard about this, but according to deep states, construction of this barrier began in July 2023. It's basically been constructed to produce a quick and cheap wall to prevent Ukrainian advances in the area. So this isn't a train in the strictest sense, it's a barrier. Russia isn't going to be strapping Thomas to it and tugging these across the country. It's basically a massive string of train cars strung together to form a wall. Here it is on Google Maps, roughly measured out. So it's on a branch of a railway line south of Donetsk. Zoomed in on a section here, you can see that this railroad has two tracks, so I expect one is used for the massive train barrier, the other is being kept open for supply and that sort of thing. Google Maps shows us where it is, but to see more of what it's covering and protecting, we need to move to deep states. So a rather odd place for it near Vuhledar, as Ukraine so far hasn't really launched a major counter-offensive here, and there's no real indication of them planning to do so. But I suppose the big intention really here is actually to safeguard Donetsk from the south. If Ukraine do launch a large counterattack to try and capture Donetsk, then this barrier will help defend against any possible push hoping to encircle Donetsk from the south. Now, first instinct I expect will be to laugh at this, but really, it's not a bad idea. It's relatively cheap and easy way to add an extra layer of defence here. The cars are all stolen from Ukraine. Construction started in July last year, so it took a little over 6 months to build. I'm not an engineer, but I expect to build an actual defensive wall 30 kilometres long in that time, will take longer, cost much more money, and require much more manpower than just stringing a bunch of train cars together like this. And it will be difficult for Ukraine to dislodge. Yes, they can be destroyed, but it's going to take a lot of artillery shells to punch breach points in this. All shells, but won't be targeting Russian tanks. Then, once breach points have been made, the attacking tanks and armoured vehicles are going to be funneled through some pretty obvious choke points for Russia to zero its artillery and missiles and grads in on in order to hit as they pass through the breaches. Knock a tank out in the breach, and the breach is blocked again until the tank is removed. Not to mention, destroying the train cars would be no easy task. They are pretty tough, and even if the bulk of a train car is destroyed, it's still going to leave wreckage behind which may form an obstruction until cleared. So it's actually not too bad of an idea, this. Of course, it is a bit of a double-edged sword, as this is also a barrier for Russia, meaning this is going to block off Russian tank movements in this region too, which also makes this a bit of a surprising place for it. Just to the north is Marinka and Novomihайлivka, highlighted in red. So this barrier could potentially impede Russian pushes to the south of these settlements by impacting tank movements and vehicle movements. Also, if Ukraine does launch a counteroffensive in this area, it's also going to limit Russia's ability to reinforce the area, as we've got a massive 30-kilometer train barrier blocking potential routes. It is going to help Russia's defences, but it's also going to limit their own abilities to a degree. I've switched views on deep states here to show Russia's defensive works, so you can see there's some pretty solid defensive fortifications in this area. Some heavy trenches behind the barrier, smaller ones in front of it. Just to the north and south of where it begins and ends, we can also see trenches and various fortifications shown. So Russia is pretty well dug in here, and this train barrier makes it all the more difficult for Ukraine if they launch a counter-offensive here. Here it is zoomed out, so you can see it's on the southern front near Vuhledar. So that's it for this video. Now, before I finish, I'm going to play a video message from the Ukraine Volunteer Centre about an ongoing fundraiser with them. Big thanks to everybody who's donated so far. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks so much, and take care, everybody.
Greetings from the Ukrainian Volunteer Center. Today we have to announce an urgent fundraising. The brigade that is destroying the occupiers in the Donetsk sector urgently needs cause. Nissan Navara diesel of 2008. These guys have been defending our country from the Russian invaders since the beginning of the full-scale war. After the shelling, they have almost no cars left, and now it's winter and it's very difficult to move around without a car. We also need 4,000 liters of diesel fuel for the 3rd separate battalion of Ukrainian Volunteer Army Volyn. Also, spring uniform is required, assault vests with quick release system, etc. The goal of fundraising is $24,500. We realize that it's a lot of money, and at the same time we ask for understanding for our situation. If everyone donated at least $50, we would close the fundraising in 6 hours. Indeed, each of your donation is a lifesaver and matter of our country liberated. We will send 3 sets of glasses with the symbols of our foundation to 3 people. 2 sets of glasses for people who make the biggest donation, and the 3rd set will be randomly drawn among people who have made a donation of $50 or more. All the reports of PayPal and cryptocurrency will be available as usual after the fundraising. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for being with us. With love from Ukraine.